Hello all, and welcome back to Sigil Spotlight, episode 3. My name, as always, Mr. Harlan Guthrie. I am here with Ellen. How are you doing today, Ellen?
Good. How are you?
I'm great. This shirt is a little tight, but you can't see that I've just unbuttoned the lower half of it, so I don't have to worry about that because no one knows.
The joys of working from home.
The joys of working from home. I could just not even be wearing pants. I'm really excited for today. We have an excellent guest on today who's going to be joining us in just a few minutes. But before we do that, we got some stuff coming up. I mean, the big 1 week from today, it all ends. Or to an extent, I guess it all begins, right? Because it's really glass half full, glass half empty. How are you looking at S5E, right?
Yeah.
Does it all end in your mind, or does it all begin? What are you thinking?
Well, I mean, I don't do the actual production end of it. So for me, it ends.
Well, for everybody else, it begins, because if you have not yet backed the Kickstarter S5E, the link is in the description of this video. It is right at the top. Make sure you back it now. Check it out. Look, I even made a little fancy banner there, because that's really what we're gearing up for today, or gearing up for in the next week. There's a lot of stuff that I'm excited about because of this Kickstarter, not just the obvious S5E and the book and all the fantastic art and the stories, hint at what we're going to talk about in a few minutes, but some of the stretch goals, sound booth theater, the audio production, all that kind of stuff is fascinating.
Yeah, there's a lot of really, really cool stuff that we're adding on with the actual game content. That'll be really, really cool to see as it starts coming in.
Yeah. And we're trying to get really creative too. We're thinking cords of wood, just like chopped wood you'll get. I'm thinking like Band-Aids.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. You got to have the superhero Band-Aids.
No. Just regular.
Just like, regular play. We couldn't afford superhero Band-Aids. It's just the regular kind.
I'm kidding. This is like regular Band-Aid. It's funny though. There's got to be a point. You see some of these Kickstarters, they're going crazy in the money, and don't get me wrong, we're jealous. But no, the stretch goals sometimes, we go for quality here, because I've seen some of these stretch goals for other companies. They're like a plastic version of the book, a cardboard cover sleeve. So we're going for quality here, which is really exciting. But before we talk about S5E and the guest that we have on today, Mr. Kevin Andrew Murphy, we do want to talk about some quick stuff that's coming up new from us. Do you want to lay it on us, Ellen?
Yeah, so we just released Horror at Headstone Hill on both Foundry and Roll20, which is a plot point campaign.
Right?
Yeah. It's a plot point campaign for Savage Worlds set in the Deadlands setting. It's kind of a funky little horror. It feels a little Twilight Zone. It's like a little bit. It's a little bit Twilight Zone meets like classic like Clint Eastwood westerns. It's pretty fun.
No one likes those Clint Eastwood westerns, he said jokingly. Yeah, it's exciting, and it's out now, right?
It is out now. Yes, it is available for purchase either on Foundry, which you are showing right now, or on Roll20 in the marketplace.
Foundry. What are the odds that I had it right? Yeah, Gee. I mean, I don't want to show too many of like the tokens and stuff like that, but everything from everything that gets used in this. Look at this little dog.
Yeah, it includes a whole bunch of tokens and art from the book, and it's all set. Everything you need to, as a GM, or sorry, as a marshal, they use marshal for
That's
Deadlands.
Right.
Yes, yeah. As a marshal, you should probably read through it yourself. But other than that, it's pretty much ready for you to just drop your players in and go.
Yeah, I don't want to show too much because you don't want to give anything.
There
away.
Are spoilers, yeah.
There are spoilers in this, but here, let me. Yeah, I can't. So the problem is, I was like, I'll show off some tokens, but the minute you show off a token, people are gonna be like, oh, so I'm fighting a dog, eh? We can show up the environs probably a little bit, maybe real quick, so no one can pause it.
Yeah, Heaston Hill is an established town in the Deadlands setting. So even if you don't want to play through Horror at Headstone, there's a lot more details about this particular town as well than there is in the original setting book, which is cool.
Yeah, I mean, I'm worried about spoilers, but you know what? If people are going to spoil, they're going to spoil. There's nothing that's going to change
Yeah.
It's not, and I never really got that personally. People who are really hell bent on.
We just had a conversation about this actually on one of my other servers, the point of spoilers between something that's supposed to be hidden from the viewer or the consumer and something that helps them align their expectations. So like Sixth Sense, that's supposed to be a secret. But something like...
What's supposed to be secret in Sixth Sense? What do you mean?
Yeah? Has it been long enough?
What are you talking about? I haven't seen The Sixth Sense. What are you talking about? No, yeah, you're right.
Versus something like in Dune where you like, you know, fess up, like, I can't remember the kid's name, but like, what's his name? He's the Messiah. He's the chosen one. Like saying that straight up, like that doesn't ruin anything. It just aligns your expectations of like, okay, yes, this is a chosen one story. Like,
did you just ruin Dune and The Sixth Sense for me? Because I never saw either of those. No, you're so right. It's add to the game. People don't detract from it.
Yeah,
but
so like in this is from Roll20 actually. So screenshots from Roll20, which is also gorgeous. It's not a spoiler that there is in fact a player piano. That's that.
Good.
That's just fun. Everybody wants to fight animate instruments.
Yeah, I just realized that actually might be a spoiler. I didn't think about that.
It's not.
Good. It's not. It's all good. Add to the game, people. You know, but it goes back to the whole idea of like min-maxing and trying to get every available ounce of what you know out of the game. Look, sit back, enjoy the ride, build a story with your friends. That's what we're doing on our actual play S5Es Monday. So again, if you haven't been watching, make sure you check out the actual play that we've been doing every Monday at 7 Eastern. I've been playing with some wonderful players going through S5E. If you're hesitant about the system for whatever reason, you have no reason to be, but if you are, make sure you check it out. And of course, these are all for the Pinnacle Entertainment Group, www.peginc.com. You can purchase them at a link that I'll scroll it right across the bottom. It won't look classic because you got to type all that in, but you know what?
It's pretty easy to find. There's a big logo that says Deadlands at the top. You click that and then you go find the one that says Foundry on it.
You'll figure it out. You're smart people. And also Roll20 obviously has its sort of built-in way to find exactly what it's,
the Roll20 one should come right up if you search for it on the marketplace. That's how I've got the link.
Yeah. And I mean, how great is it? You load up the module, you do all this stuff with Foundry. It's like there for you, everything you need. There is something satisfying. It takes you away from the days of obviously the checkered map and having to draw it out. But really, at the end of the day, as much as that stuff is fun, you want to sit down and you want to play with your friends.
Yeah. It helps like clear up. You don't have to have.
That's the issue. You got to find your friends first, though, because I don't have that.
But it helps you, now you don't have to have, tabs flying everywhere and books all over the place on your table in front of you while you're trying to play. You can just play, which is nice.
It's crazy. So yeah, that is out. And that is sort of one of the big things, obviously, that is out now. And then, of course, the other monumental S5E. 1 week from today, it is over.
Is it 1 week? When does it close exactly?
7 days. 7 days.
Oh, boy.
Right? Yeah, 7 days to go.
Okay, yeah. Sorry, I had the wrong date. That was my fault.
No, it could be, you know what? I'm Canadian. And when I go to the Kickstarter, it does an exchange rate automatically. Like right now, in US dollars, it is at 38,000-ish. But for me, it says 48,000. So you know what? It could be doing a Canadian conversion on the day, too.
Yes, because Canadians have different days.
They're worth more.
You're so much further north. It just...
so much further north, the days... I don't know. They go different. It's a backwards world up here. But yeah, no, 7 days. If you are on the fence, like I said, you can check out the actual play on Monday at 7 o'clock. We are on chapter 3. Chapter 4 is this Monday. And I believe on chapter 5, on the 26th, we're going to have a guest star for that game. Have you heard about this?
I've heard about it.
You've heard about it?
Well, you were very excited about it.
Yeah, Noah Averbach-Katz from Star Trek Discovery. He plays the Andorian Rin. He's going to be joining us on Monday. So, we're all going to nerd out and I'm sure not focus on the game and bother him about stuff. No, we won't. Could you imagine? How terrible would that be?
How uncomfortable is it to be an Andorian? Like what?
Why aren't you blue right now? No, so he's going to be joining us on the 5th episode, which is going to be a lot of fun. And yeah, it's just been really exciting. We've had some wonderful assets from Sigil, Alita Saxon. I can't speak highly enough about her artwork for the stuff, and it's been a lot of fun. So again, if you're on the fence, make sure you check that out. But there are many other things that S5E is bringing to the table, not just the rule book and the RPG, but a great number of wonderful little, I shouldn't say little, short stories, content that is really rather exciting in a manner of speaking. And a lot of this fantastic work is being done by our next guest star, who's going to be joining right now. To this stream, not AP, although maybe he wants to come on. Please welcome Mr. Kevin Andrew Murphy.
Yeah.
How's it going, Kevin?
All right.
How are you doing today? What's the weather up where you're at? Where are you at? You're in Nevada, aren't you?
In Nevada. I'm in Reno. The weather it's been in the 90s, but I expect it's going to be getting a lot hotter today. But I've got air conditioner in the house, so I'm feeling fine.
Fine. Everything's going to be great. Look at that backdrop, Yeah. An envious backdrop.
Yeah, I've got my background in anthropology and folklore, so I've got basically all of my things, ritual and belief in Morocco, and just all of the writer books and folklore books behind me. Plus, also, of course, books for like wild cards I'm working on. So I've got Gold Silver Queens. That's got my character, Captain Flint, on the cover. And then the new wild cards that just came out, that's Joker Moon and Moon Maid, that's Marianne Mohenraj's character on the cover. And that just came out this past week. No stories by me in the second one, but it's, part of the world. My character, Beastie, gets to go to the moon. So
that's
other characters deal with him.
How exciting is it to be a part of that series for you? I mean, obviously you are accomplished, but that must be right up there for you.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, George jumped me into the gang when I was 23, and I'm a good bit older now, but it's been about half my life.
25, right? 26 now. So it's been 3
Yeah. I mean, the pandemic, it was hell, but
that's so exciting, though. That must be really an achievement, obviously. And we're so excited to bring that energy to S5E. So, I mean, you're working on a bunch of sort of part stories. One of them, probably the most exciting one, is what I think a lot of people who have backed are now familiar with, that static image, the actual team, and you're putting together sort of how they all came to be, right? Did you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So let's see. There's the Covenant of Six, and that's basically the 6 characters that you get to see there on the cover. And I don't know how much I get to spoil about out of them, but we've got our magician who's starting off the story, and he's going along until let's see, you got the picture there. Yeah, so got the magician. We've got the devil woman. I'll go ahead. I'll tease her name. She's Impact. And she's from another world, which is not hell, but we sort of think it is at first. And to the youngest member of the team there with his flying drones and stuff, and it's great fun. I end up dealing with a little bit of the stories of Edgar Allan Poe in his story, and it's just I'm a research junkie. I work every little bit of folklore in that I can possibly do. Let's see, somewhere here I've actually got for the magician. It's like I've got all my occult books. So there's like some of the stuff where I was consulting for the mysteries of the Arabian Nights for Hollywood, and they were going, it's like, well, how do flying carpets work? It says, funny you should mention that. I've got the actual spell here, and and I ended up pulling that into the story. They ended up not using it for Hollywood, but I used it for our story. So it was like Sadir Iqbal Shah, who was like a mystic in the 1910s and 20s and so forth, but he wrote up the spell. It's actually in the original Arabian Nights folklore with Suleiman the Wise and so forth, and has him flying the carpet. But Shah says, here's the actual invocation of the flying carpet if you want your flying carpet to go.
That's awesome.
That's so cool.
So you're working a lot of this sort of like, is some of it overt or is it more sort of subtle so that people who maybe know, like, oh, I know Aleister Crowley, I recognize that name type thing. Like, is it sort of more straightforward or do you like kind of sneaking it in a little bit?
A certain amount it's sneaking in, and some of it is just simply going and looking at the history and going, wow, this is just too good not to use, just because there are so many weird things that happen in history. There's no excuse not to use them. Oh, and if I can do a small thing with a brag, I swapped T-shirts. This is the Mid-South Con T-shirt. It's the 9 Worlds, but that's where I got the Darrell Award for my Wildcards novella, Find the Lady, that was in Mississippi Roll. So I thought, okay, go ahead and show off my credits.
Absolutely. Hey, that's what we're here for. We're building you up. I mean,
okay.
The more we build you up, the more credibility it gets to us anyway.
Yeah,
so
we're working with this really cool guy.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but it's sort of like, scholarship, sort of like, here we go. We got the Kate Lee, the fairy mythology, which actually is one of the things, the old references. I pulled it for the Union of Seven, which is the next stretch goal, which was like immediately made. So I'm having to write it up for one of the new characters. You probably even haven't seen her picture, but she's Prospera, and there's going to be some fairy lore in with her. So I needed to grab the fairy mythology to check things out.
So cool. Yeah. So we have the Covenant of Six, which is a 12-parter that you're doing. And that's, again, the formation of that. And then this Union of Seven you just mentioned, that's sort of the Arcane Union, you said. Is there, and again, obviously we want to walk this line because we want to make sure that it still stays spoilery, or rather, that we don't spoil anything. At the same time, this is obviously so exciting. I mean, we all backed this project because we love superheroes, and superheroes are nothing without their backstories. That's really half of what makes a great superhero story, how they came to formation. So are you getting to sort of exercise some of those, deep-seated wishes when you get to do something like this? Because this is sort of, there's an element of wish fulfillment when you get to create a superhero,
Oh yeah, it's a lot of fun working with Aaron, because Aaron is our art director, and he comes to me with the art saying, here's the character, what's their backstory? And I'm going like, okay, let me look at this. And I'm going, it says, okay, you're going to either love it or hate it. And he says, I love it, write that one. And so I don't know, but there are so many different backgrounds that you can come up with your characters. I mean, honestly, some of it goes back to gaming for ages. I'll go ahead and mention with Wildcards. Captain Flint I got into Wildcards writing Wildcards Aces Abroad, which was like the 4th book, but I did the adaptation for GURPS, and I created the character of Captain Flint. And then he was brought in as a background character, like mumble, like, over 30 years ago, going through the stories. And then suddenly we got to have Knaves Over Queens, which is their first British volume, and he's there on the Queen Mary getting infected with the wild card. So suddenly my character that I just had written up a background for when I was 23, I get to write a full novella for.
That's so fantastic.
That's so cool.
So that's the exact same thing that I'm doing, for Sigil here. But Aaron has just given me all the artwork saying, here's this character, what's their backstory, and then I get to write it up. And and also what I've done with the Covenant of Six, and I'm doing with the Union of Seven, it's basically an interwoven story of not only here the background, but here is how the teams formed.
Which is, again, the other big question superhero teams like this.
Yeah.
Awesome. Ellen, there's some questions that you had. Sorry, I've been monopolizing.
Yeah, no, you're good. And as soon as you put me on the spot, then they immediately all fly out of my head. I guess so. So you said for this one, you basically got the art first and then created the character, versus some of your other projects. Like you were just saying, Captain Flint's been floating around forever, and now he's on a cover. Is it more fun to be able to create a character when you already have a visual reference for them, or is it more fun to see a character that's only existed in your head suddenly exist like on paper and like working with an artist to create that.
Honestly, it's a little bit of both. It goes each way, but it's also a case of my character Hearn for wild cards, where I went with the classic Cernunnos look, which is like from mythology. It's from the collective unconscious. So I have a character who looks like that, and then George liked him. Then I had George writing him first, and then got other people to write him, and so it's just go back and forth. And then like he's now on the cover of Dealer's Choice for the reissue, and looks really great. And I've gotten everyone just look that up. But you've got a guy with antlers and stag legs who's like riding the Wild Hunt across the Brooklyn Bridge. So the artist had great fun with that.
Yeah.
And the artist will often, come up with something far more amazing and flamboyant that, the writers can do. But then, writers, we just, pull everything onto the page and we go with the full backstory. And actually, I shouldn't say that with the the Union of Seven, Aaron showed me all of the artwork directly. When I was writing with the Covenant of Six, Eugene Marshall, who's the creator of S5E, had a lot of the characters already. He had their very, very short backgrounds done. And so we worked on that and expanded it. And occasionally we also twisted things around where, in the writing, I say, okay, and here's something that she did in the past. And he said, I really never liked that line when you write it. Can we just drop it out of the story? And I will drop it out of the official background wing. That's fine. But, as I've learned from working with George for years, the only thing that is canon is what is finally published. You go through, your multiple drafts and going, this was a great idea when we thought about it, but now that we look at it written, no, we've got a much better idea. We'll go with something else.
Must be tough sometimes to keep that straight, though. You're talking to someone 2 years later, and they're like, "Oh, I read that book. I love this aspect," and you're like, "Yeah,
oh, that's what we went with."
Yeah. Especially if you're throwing a lot of ideas out there, which obviously you have to. And I wonder how much of that. Do you purposely try to, move away from tropes, or do you sometimes just embrace them? Like, how much of that struggle around creating a character like these is just trying to move away from like a Captain America or something like that, or do you just not worry about it? Do you just do what feels right? And
it's a little bit of both. The thing is that, tropes are the new name for literature. Tropes are to literature as motif index is to folklore. And if you go with the old classic motifs, those have been around for ages, and those are the things that are going to resonate with people the most. But then there's going to be a lot of people who all they've just seen is the more modern tropes. So they're used to seeing Superman or Batman. But the thing is that Batman is a ripoff of Zorro, who's a ripoff of the Scarlet Pimpernel. And, nobody talks about the Scarlet Pimpernel right now, but if you decide to pull some bits from, of course, that's actually still trope, but it's, old enough that we're just saying like, oh, that's very original. No, actually, that is the original. And I'm getting away from the more popular, 2 times derived character.
Yeah.
And so knowing where the history of all the characters characters are, it's like, here's Captain America, here's Wonder Woman, here's Superman, and what are all of these things, that they're playing on. So we're doing a world is that, you've got a magician, and I could say, yes, this is Doctor Strange, yes, this is John Constantine, but no, they're their own character. And everything is usually playing on things that people have been doing for, hundreds of years. Houdini took his name from Houdin, who's the guy who made the classic disappearing cabinet. And, nobody except, magic show buffs knows like, well, who's Houdin? It's like,
and you, obviously.
Yeah, but it's like I've done lots of stuff with magic. Actually, the story that I won the award for, my character Roger Ravenstone is a stage magician. So I've been doing research on that forever too.
Well
So
read.
you're ready for Vegas.
Oh yeah,
Yeah. Right there.
been to Vegas many times. I'm here in Reno, which is sort of like the other Vegas.
Yeah.
So, I mean, realistically, all you're saying is that, you just need a bigger one. Like Batman overshadowed the other ones. So really, someone can make another Batman. It just has to be more popular than Batman. That's easy. So easy to make something more popular than Batman or Captain America. Just make the most. Funny though. Interesting insight.
Yeah.
Alan?
That's interesting.
I know you have more questions. I keep jumping in. And
No, you're good. Like, no, it's interesting. I always think it's interesting the way the relationship that creators have with tropes and illusions and pop culture, and how many of them are like, okay, no, these are evil, you have to stay away from them, and how many of them, and versus the balance of, no, they can do your heavy lifting for you. Like, you can just say, this guy's goth, and boom, we all know who this guy is, and now you don't have to spend pages and pages explaining who that is. And just where everybody falls on that like spectrum is always interesting. I guess so. You're mostly working at this on the fiction side of what we're doing with Supers 5e. How is that writing for essentially a tabletop RPG setting different than writing something that's like truly independent fiction, where it's completely your own world? It's not going to come back into a game setting. It's just its own thing. Does that change your approach at all?
Not really. I mean, honestly, I was brought into Wildcards, years ago to write a game book, and then I ended up having my characters become canon immigrants, because after I wrote a game adventure, George had them adapted or just brought in whole cloth into the universe for the fiction novels. But we've got, the show is being developed at Peacock, so right now my characters will be showing up hopefully on screen. And as George called me the Hydra of Wildcards, every time he kills one of my characters, I create 3 more. So I think I have fairly good odds of getting one of my characters on screen. But he or she may just be a background character at first. I know some of the plots that everyone's going for, and about the only thing that I can say with certainty is that Roger Zelazny's character, the Sleeper, is probably going to be showing up in a great number of episodes, but played by a great number of actors, because the whole thing with the Sleeper is every time the Sleeper falls asleep and wakes up, he wakes up in a new body with a new power, and sometimes he's an ace with like superpowers, and sometimes he's a twisted, deformed Joker. That's Wildcards, but just mention that. But it'll also be a really fun thing for the casting director. It's like, wait, we can get this one big name actor, but only for one episode. Cool.
Well, that works for us.
Freud for one episode, and it'll work just fine. Well, it's like Doctor Who and the Regenerations. But just
much faster.
Much faster. And then, but anyway, so back for the S5e characters. I've always approached it as fiction, because all of the different types of media have always worked back and forth. There are stage plays, there are movies, there's, one thing in another. And role-playing games, which are on paper, are basically written as plays. And now we're having people, doing them, live on the internet and dramatizing them. So it's like, and this is different from Playhouse 90 in the 1950s doing a play live. It's a play. Yeah. It's a specific type of play where we've got all of our dramatis personae. Here's the characters. Here's the rough outline, but it's going to actually turn out a little bit different every time, because we're doing it as live theater with extemporaneous, and it can turn out different. Yeah.
Those jerk live stream players. God, I hate them. But you're absolutely right. And there's sort of a fun, it brings in elements of improv and all that kind of stuff. And that's exciting. I mean, the series sounds exciting. Obviously, if it's George R. R. Martin, all your characters will die. So I appreciate that you're already sort of taking that with a grain of sand, because, how did you feel about the television adaptation of the Game of Thrones? Did you hate it by the end, or were you all a fan?
Honestly, I loved it, and I have some friends of mine, and I will go ahead and tell the hilarious story. One of my old friends and mentor, Catherine Carr, who's another novelist, was given the manuscript of Game of Thrones, so the unbound paper version of it, to blurb. And then she had it on her coffee table. It says, "Kevin, you know George. Would you like to read his next book before that comes out?" So she'd given it to me. And then the first book of Game of Thrones is really big. And so like I started reading and thinking, okay, I'll wait for the paperback or hardback to come out and get that. But then I had the manuscript in my closet under my shoes for several years until George came out for a convention, and I had him sign it, and we gave it to the charity auction. And I hate to think of how much that's worth now. But you know, that was before the TV show. So going back around to the TV show, it's like I knew things, and from working with Wildcards, I knew George, and so everyone was saying like, "Were you surprised by the final episode?" And I'm going, it's foreshadowed from the very first chapter. It's a bookend. If you watch the last episode of Game of Thrones, everything that you saw foreshadowed in the first episode of Game of Thrones is coming to fruition. But the trouble is that if you're a writers, we understand how foreshadowing works, but a lot of regular readers, it's like magic tricks. Readers are surprised. How did this possibly happen? And if you know stage magic, and sort of like, that was a really nice pass and a distraction and a this, that, and the other, trick that the magician did. But if you're writing, it's like there's a certain amount of foreshadowing, and I think that they got the amount right for the show. But getting it right means that some people will be satisfied, some people will be unsatisfied, and some people will be in between, because it's going to be argued about, which is why everyone's on the internet and everywhere. It's going like, and how's it going to be? And of course, it'll be a bit different for the book, because one thing that George has said to everybody is, how many characters did Scarlett O'Hara? How many children did Scarlett O'Hara have? If you read the novel Gone with the Wind, she has 3. If you watch the movie, they winnowed it down to 1, which is canon, whatever you like.
Yeah, exactly.
Dorothy's ruby slippers are the silver shoes in the original. But if you're going to be, wowing everyone with Technicolor, the ruby slippers look much better on camera.
They do. Yeah.
They really do.
But honestly, also when Baum originally wrote things, I've watched his original black and white movies. If you're going to do silver shoes on silver nitrate black and white film, they better be silver shoes rather than ruby slippers, which will just look like chocolate.
Yeah.
Funny. Crazy about that, the manuscript and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that. Anyway, back to S5E. You took me away for a second to this wonderful world before all of this existed. But
we actually have a question about like stories and GMs from one of our viewers. I don't know if you caught that. Yeah. So do you see your stories as similar to the way that GMs try and tell stories? So you're kind of slotting in your fiction in between the spaces and hard canon. And just how does that, how do you see your work in relation to a GM's work?
Okay. Well, honestly, the way that I look at it is, the hard canon is that, if a role-playing game is a play and your characters or your dramatis personae and everything is set up, every time a GM is telling a story with that, it's going, straight off. It's their production of the play, and the script of the play is the adventure. The game fiction I've written is pretty much a novelization of another adventure that never happened. So it's basically it's Twelfth Night, and you're producing the Merry Wives of Windsor. Same characters, different play. And so in a case of it's canon, but it's the canon of the other story and the other production. And if you also have to change things and say, what happened in that previous episode or play or adventure wasn't really the truth. That was all a dream. This is what's really going on. You can do that. And that happens, regularly with plays, with television, with books. It all depends on how you want to do it. So what you consider canon, there's sort of, the most canon is usually the character bio. But honestly, to use George metaphor, the most canon is whatever it is you are doing, and it's canon for that. So if you are doing your own role-playing game, you can, what you do with your own players, that is canon for your adventure. And if it's something contradicts what's written in the book, that's fine. You've changed it. You're the director. You're the GM, and that's the way you do it.
Interesting. How often do you get to play? Are you normally a game master or a PC, or do you do both? Or I game master a D&D game for my friends on Wednesday evenings, and then I play in another friend's game usually on Tuesdays, which is dealing with the Greek myths.
Oh, cool.
Nice. And obviously, it's all sort of home brewed, all written stuff, not published modules, I'm assuming.
Yeah, I've written published modules, and I did mention stuff for Pathfinder. So I've run some of the Pathfinder adventure paths for my friends when I was a little bit too busy writing my own stuff to have time to write an adventure. But it depends on what you're doing and how you're doing it. And I mean, that's the fun thing about characters and adventures and so forth, is that you can get an adventure module, but it has also all of the characters, so that you don't necessarily have to run the adventure, but you can pull any of the any of the characters or any of the set pieces out to pull into your own world. Absolutely,
yeah. So here's a question. If you're running one of your own published adventures, do you say it's homebrew, or do you say that you're running a published adventure? It's kind of a middle ground there.
This is a published adventure.
Yeah.
But it's all home rules.
Honestly, I don't even really say any of that, because most of my players already know me. It's like, we're dealing with Kevin. They know Kevin's an author, and that I'm already publishing things and writing adventures and so forth.
It's funny. That's exciting. And Liz really appreciated that answer. They said, what an incredibly nuanced answer. So there you go. There's a compliment. Exciting. What adventure paths on Pathfinder have you done? I didn't realize that it was Pathfinder as well. I knew about the other.
Okay, well, I did all of the fiction for the Reign of Winter, so that's the Bone Dust Dolls, and then I was brought in originally for the River Kingdoms one, and I got to do one. It's called the Fifth River Freedom. And basically, that one, they broke up the Pathfinder tale into six parts, and they had 6 different authors writing one. And so I was given a couple of characters, and I got them onto a riverboat and had them dealing with Professor Grizzlebane, the old Lucrata, who was hiding in the puppet show and doing all of the voices for a character. Because it's like, what do you do if you have an old, lame Lucrata and gets stuck on a riverboat in the menagerie, and then can do really good voices? So it's like, it's doing a puppet show for children. So it's like all of the incredible violence of the Clever Nella show, which was basically Punch and Judy for Pathfinder. It's like, what would a Lucrata not love about that? And it says, you're there to eat the children. No, I think they're like my little cubs. Sort of like so wonderfully vicious, because these are children.
That's good.
That's fun.
Well, we're so excited about these stories that are coming up, these backgrounds for these characters that we've come to really recognize, the ones that are going to be on the cover of the book and all that kind of stuff. It's really exciting. And obviously, you're such an accomplished author and writer of so many things that are right within this that we know it's going to be excellent.
Mm-hmm.
I've had the chance to read a few of your stories as well that Sound with Theater has done, and that Jeff Hayes has narrated. And I'm actually narrating one of your stories as well too for the other Pinnacle. Weird World Wars or Weird Wars, your No Man's Land story as well. So it's exciting to get to actually meet you and talk about that, which is exciting. But Alan, were there any other questions from the community that people were asking?
That was about it from the community questions.
Excellent.
Yeah, well, I can talk a bit more about the characters from the Kickstarter and some of the background for them.
Sure.
So,
We're not getting in trouble with too much detail. I think we'd love that. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so one of them, and sort of like, I don't know how much to spoil of her name, but we've got the lady with the glaives, with the the big swords. Those are actually made out of vril because she's a woman from Atlantis, and for Atlantis, I honestly went right back to the original source material, and so I used Madame Blavatsky's Secret Doctrine, both because it's public domain and because she did her background so much. So there's like Atlantis and Lemuria and all of these legends. And if it sounds kind of like what Marvel and DC have done for their own versions of Atlantis, that's because they were pulling from Madame Blavatsky too, the same as Howard did for the Conan books, Clark Ashton Smith, it was created in the Victorian age as, crazed conspiracy theories, but really, really cool ones that started the Theosophical Society. And then a whole bunch of fiction authors, and most recently me, just went, this is just too cool not to use. So we're just using it part of the secret background of the world. Now, of course, we've twisted it in, but there's some extra special mechanics and stuff that Eugene had come up with for the world in S5E, and I basically folded that into where would it work into the Atlantean mythology. And also, I've got our villain there with the tomes. He's actually an ancient Lemurian wizard king, and so get to work in a lot of the magic there.
Gotta love a good wizard king.
That's exciting. Yeah. Cool. Well, thank you so much for sharing a bit about that. And again, if you are interested in any of this, make sure you back the S5E Kickstarter right now. The link is in the description. We have 1 week left. We are hoping to blow our goal out of the water, which we frankly already have. Thank you so much for that. But there's still more stretch goals. There are still more things that we want to accomplish. So, and also, it's just going to be a really fun time. If you are hesitant or you're curious how it plays, you can check out the actual play that we have on Mondays. I think, Kevin, you even stopped by to watch some of that when I was running it on.
Yeah, I watched a little bit, lurked in the background, and sort of like message from my Twitch account. Yeah.
Appreciate that.
It's funny with the stretch goals. I didn't check yet this morning. Has a deep dive been put on for the Union of Seven yet, or is it?
Let's see. I have not checked stretch goals.
Let's take a look.
Deep dive for Union of Seven. Helen of Illinois is there. Yeah, Union of Seven. Yeah, there we go. Sound Booth Theater.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, there it is. That's exciting. That's going to be, and obviously Sound Booth Theater does such great work with the reads and all that kind of stuff. So it's going to be fun. Sorry, no. Aaron
not
said
yet.
not yet. Oh, not the deep dive. They did the audiobooks, but not the deep dive. The deep dive is not there yet.
Yeah.
Okay.
Deep dive is their sort of terminology for adding extra sound effects and making it feel like an audio drama and bringing it alive, which is a really excellent way to experience it. Frankly, makes it all that more enjoyable.
Okay.
Awesome. Well, are we almost ready to enter a dungeon?
I think so.
Kevin, every week we have a community member offer a little dungeon puzzle. This week is admittedly a little easy. I'm sure you guys will solve it in no time flat. However, it was submitted.
I bet Kevin's heard it before. I remember reading it. I just don't remember the answer.
Guarantee you've heard it before. So do us a favor, Kevin. Hum and haw a little bit before you wallop us with the answer. Because was submitted
Better
by
yet.
someone. We want to let them know that they did a good job. So, without further ado, let's enter a dungeon.
Now it's time for You Enter a Dungeon.
You walk down the stone steps. Dust underneath your feet. You see the light from the torch that you hold flickering off the walls of the cavern. The two of you reach the bottom. Ellen, you touch the walls. You see the dust fall. It has been many years since anyone has been in this particular dungeon. And as you turn the corner, the door locks behind you, and an ominous voice speaks over top. 3 doors appear magically on the far side of the room, and the voice says, "The first door leads to an inferno. The second to an assassin. The last door leads to a lion that hasn't eaten in 3 years. Which door will you choose?" And then the intense music starts. This is where you're supposed to talk amongst yourself about what the puzzle is and then solve it. Go.
So have you heard this one before? As Harlan was reading it out loud, I remembered it.
Well, I've heard of this, but we're in a fantasy world, so there are lots of extra options here.
yeah. I'm like, fantasy world. I'll take the assassin. Yeah, I'll take that XP. Thanks. Yeah.
I should mention this was submitted by Jesse M, who has been a loyal viewer from all of our stuff. So thank you so much, Jesse. Wonderful submission. And yeah, go ahead, debate in character if you wish.
There you go. Regardless, is giving us a 4th door with 15 inches.
Yeah. Now the first one, I mean, the Inferno. This could be a furnace, or this could actually be, the Inferno from Dante. In which case, the very first bit is the vestibule where all of the good pagans are, and it's actually just sort of like oh look, we can go and talk with Buddha and Mahatma Gandhi. This really isn't that bad.
Yeah, that sounds sure.
If we go into the vestibule of the Inferno is really not a bad place. The later levels are pretty awful, but the vestibule is kind of awesome.
It's gonna be really a lot of great visage, a lot of great landscapes in there. You're gonna have a great time.
Yeah, that's
right. What's your actual answer to the puzzle? I mean, this is a classic dungeon puzzle. You guys know the answer.
No, the thing is that the classic is that the lion who is not eaten in 3 years is probably dead now. However, this is a fantasy world.
Yeah, so it could
probably
be
undead. So we've got a ghostly lion that is, has died from hunger, and that's going to be pretty.
A lion lich.
That's probably going to be a higher CR than the assassin.
The assassin,
You got Jesse's answer correct, but now give me the better answer. What's the actual? What do you want? How do you leave this dungeon? By the way, great question, Jesse. It was a lot.
That's good.
Mm.
How would you do it? I like all these theories. Are we leaning towards the assassin now or the Inferno? Because Inferno does sound gorgeous at the top level.
I mean, yeah, I like the Dante's Inferno. If we think that's the Inferno we're going, I like that. There's a lot of cool people there to chat with. That sounds fun. If we're going with it's probably, I don't know, a giant pillar of fire, then no, I'm kind of liking the assassin over Lion Lich.
Yeah, and you know what? The assassin, it doesn't say an assassin who's been hired to kill you. Usually they don't kill people unless they've been paid. So we can just simply go in saying, "Hi, we heard there was an assassin here. We'd really like to kill someone. Here's some money."
Yeah, hi, we're hiring. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nothing
no,
less intimidating than someone telling you there's an assassin in there, because now you know. You don't just look in the dark shadow corners if they are, and just be like, "Hey, I know you're in here." It's not like
hello, are you accepting?
Hi, yes, yeah, we've got someone who needs to die. There's someone who needs killing and money to pay for that.
Yeah, and they're great. Yeah, and then you can go attack this voice. Well done, guys. Great answer. Great dungeon. Thank you, Jesse, for submitting that. Really great. Kevin, this has been such a blast. I have one question that I'm excited. You are obviously well-read. You're well-versed in what's going on. And I'm just curious from a personal standpoint, what are you excited about? What's going on right now, whether it's a personal project or a show you love or a novel you finished or just, a new hobby you picked up? What's exciting in your life right now that you'd like to share? Because I don't know.
Quite honestly, I just got Joker Moon because I'm apart from a few pages that I was given to approve my character Beastie, I haven't read anything of it other than George's original, outline, because we basically get to try out to be in everything, and we don't get into every book. So actually, I'm looking forward to reading Marianne's story and Mike Cassett and everybody else who's written stories there. So it's not just keeping up with the field. That's basically the next book on my bedside table, which I grabbed to show everybody here.
That's exciting. So that's your top right now. That's what you're
I'm probably going to start reading it this afternoon.
Good. There you go.
Well, I'm so glad. Do a live reading for us because we're curious. No, I'm just kidding. Well, thank you so much, Kevin. This is an absolute blast having you on. Again, ladies and gentlemen, you can find Kevin Andrew Murphy's various collected works at his website. I believe I had your website open before, but it is just your name, correct?
It's kevinandrewmurphy.com. Though, honestly, the website has not been updated in quite a while. As a case of SFFnet that hosted it had gone away, had a friend take it over, and then I had huge amounts of deadlines in life the past year. So it's a case of, and here's my website that has not been updated in about 5 or 6 years. The other thing is that you can find a whole bunch of stuff at wildcardsworld.com, which is all Wildcards writers, and we've got basically it's all my Wildcards work, not everything else. Mostly check me out on Facebook and on Twitter. I basically just keep everything up there.
And you also mentioned you have a Twitch account. Do you stream from that, or is that just what you use to watch?
I mostly just use to watch. I haven't done it to stream yet, but it's good to have it.
We'll organize something, Kevin. We'll start a new campaign. It'll be a blast.
This live read, we'll just all sit there and just read quietly on stream together.
Love that. Or we'll play a new epic game. Who knows? But yes, so make sure you check out Kevin Andrew Murphy. Thank you again so much for coming on. This was an absolute blast. So excited for S5V, these stories, the work coming up. That is it from us for another Sigil Spotlight. We will see you 2 weeks' time. And that's it. Make sure you go check out the link in the description, S5E. Thank you again, Kevin. Have a great one, ladies and gentlemen. Take care.